Hello, and welcome to Freedom Keepers Senior Edition. Are you ready to stand strong for liberty, not just for yourself, but for your children, grandchildren, and all those who will follow? This podcast is for all seniors to unite in our love of freedom, our love of our country, family, and faith. All of you are welcome. Please join us, two senior retirees, myself, Irene, and Beverly, my co-host, possibly like yourselves, and a community of seniors who cherish independence and are committed to keeping the spirit of liberty alive. Keep in mind, as seniors, we're 18 to 20% of the U.S. population, or that's close to 60 million strong. Together, we're going to share stories, experience, wisdom, and practical ways to protect our freedoms for generations to come. So tune in, unite with us, Freedom Keepers. Let's make a difference. Let's not be afraid. Let your voices be heard, and let's keep our freedoms alive. We call this our first episode, Is This My Country? We're going to start by introducing ourselves, telling you a little bit about our backgrounds. So now I'm turning it over to my co-host, Beverly.
Thank you very much, Irene. Hello, everyone, and so glad you're with us today. Just a little bit about myself. I was born in a very small town in New Jersey to middle-class parents. I graduated high school, got a job. Back then, you got married and had children. College really wasn't an option. One of the reasons was my parents really couldn't afford it. I really wanted to go to college to be a nurse, and I also had a desire to become an artist, a graphic artist. However, I married at 19, had two children, beautiful children, eventually two grandchildren, actually three grandchildren, and saw my wish come true during the early 70s when I had an opportunity to go to a community college that offered an accelerated registered nursing program. I graduated from there and worked in mostly emergency rooms. That was a gas and a half. While working full time, I pursued my undergraduate and graduate degrees and went on to become a nursing educator. I had a great career, and now I'm retired, pursuing my hobby of painting in oils, being independent, and thanking God for all the opportunities this country has given me.
Thanks, Beverly. And she's a great artist, by the way.
Thank you.
Very talented. I was born to Ukrainian immigrants, raised in upstate New York in the suburbs. Education was super important to my parents as theirs was interrupted by the war. And I loved
Yeah.
school. So I went to college, majored in French and Russian, did a junior year abroad in Paris. I kept going to school. I loved it so much. So I got graduate degrees in Russian literature, very marketable. However, I was lucky enough to work for a trading company in Moscow, Russia for 3 years. And that was many years ago. I became fluent. I married a Russian Ukrainian photographer, and we came back to New York City. My husband opened his photography studio. I was his production manager and sales rep, while I also worked in desktop publishing and computer graphics for about 5 years. I was also a manager at a textbook publisher and at a utility electric company for 20 years before I retired in 2019. Currently, I live in an adult community in New Jersey. I'm now a widow of 9 years, but I had the best husband, John, for 42 years, for which I'm ever so grateful for. We are both retired and seniors like most of you, and we're not happy at all with what's going on. So, Beverly, why don't you start us off? Why are we doing this podcast?
Well, before I say that, I just wanted to say that I'm really impressed with your background.
Thanks.
It's really fantastic. Irene, I became aware of a decline in the education system in our country. Statistics show that there were test score drops. There was a major decline in math and reading post-COVID. U.S. students scored well below the national average. And this is very disturbing because I believe the reason we're seeing this shift is because of many factors. There's declining academic standards, reduced focus on core subjects, post-COVID challenges, a shift away from challenging gifted students, which is really not a good thing, teacher burnout, inadequate resources, parental upbringing, and a whole host of problems. Some parents are experiencing problems with finances, drugs, burnout, and they're unable to raise their children. So more grandparents are stepping up to the plate. And we see a future, Irene and I, for empowering these seniors and helping our kids to develop further. We need to be the vehicle for change. The time for complacency is over. Our freedom of speech and everything we hold dear in our country is at stake. When we finally wake up, it'll be all over, as in the book George Orwell, 1984.
Beverly, I agree. I became so tired and disgusted watching what's happening to this country. It's so difficult and hard to watch any news broadcast on any station. We can't just ignore it all. I too decided I want to do something because God put me here for a purpose. He made all of you, all of us for a purpose. We matter. You matter. Our ideas matter.
Irene, that is so true. We must be able to talk to each other, to agree, to disagree. That's what America used to be like. It changed dramatically in the past 25, 30 years. Our freedom of speech is slowly being taken away from us because we disagree with someone else's opinions. And that's so wrong.
This is a fact, and it's happening every day. And you wonder, is this for real? And yes, it is. How can it be? It's insane. It's absurd.
And think of this, what if we lose our freedom? Critics are pointing to the government trying to control speech. Some administrations were accused of pressuring social media companies to censor content and prosecute their critics. This is true with the Biden and the Trump administration. Both were accused by their critics of pressuring tech companies to censor content.
And Beverly, don't forget how much we owe Elon Musk, who bought Twitter, now X, so we could see how bad the censorship was. And it was really bad. Now there's less chance for misinformation and more truth. But sadly, misinformation is still out there big time.
So true. And as seniors, we have an obligation to stand up for our children and our grandchildren. We need to bring back America and the high standards that our forefathers set for us. We can't allow groups of people who hate the United States to tear it down. I respect and love my country, Irene, because it's given me the opportunity to become whoever I wanted to be. All I had to do was put the effort into attaining that American dream. I didn't feel sorry for myself or ask to be taken care of with government handouts, because the more handouts you get, the more control they have over you.
That's so true. Beverly, let me just tell everyone about how large our senior population is in this country and its importance. We have 60 million seniors over the age of 65. That's 18% of the population, and that's projected to continue to grow. By 2040, we will represent 22%. And there are 124 million over the age of 50, from 50 to 64 years. That's 27.5% of the population. That's a huge voting bloc. However, we as seniors are often afraid to speak out. We're undervalued, we're overlooked and ignored. On this podcast, we're going to try to help you with that. We want to make you not be afraid. Even politicians ignore us, as well as the polls, which I don't even understand why. So we as seniors have experience and wisdom and need to be and should be heard. We love our country and our freedoms and want to save it.
Well, I would like to add something here because we're going through a drastic change in our country. And it brings me to a book that I read many years ago, written by David Rico, a psychotherapist. And it's called The Five Things You Cannot Change and the Happiness We Find by Embracing Them. Number one, people are not always loving and giving. Go figure, Irene. Life isn't always fair. It's true. It's not.
That's
There's
what
no,
our parents always told us, right?
this is true. There's always change. Sometimes it's good and not so good. People must be informed of it gradually, especially as we get older. Number four, pain is part of life, either physical, emotional, or mental. It's there. It's part of our lives. And lastly, everything changes and ends. You know, we could take what the author is saying by not fighting reality, but by accepting the inevitable and that everything changes and ends. This allows for personal growth, reduced anxiety, and the capacity for discovery. It keeps your mental health strong. And as seniors, we need to speak up because our Constitution is being threatened. And we need to address this change. We need to stay informed through civic engagement, like voting and contacting our local representatives, staying informed on laws and candidates. Be leery of what TV commentators and journalists you watch because they can be biased.
That's for sure.
Yeah, this is true. We can't be complacent. We need to engage with our younger generation to pass on traditional and conservative values.
Beverly, in starting up this podcast, we talked about we were very inspired by Charlie Kirk. So there are now 1 million student members of Turning Point USA with 4,500 chapters, both college and high school. They have 8,000 church partnerships. So after Charlie was assassinated, they received 140 requests for new chapters and are now processing 50 a day. Ours and the country's total shock over the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who loved God and fought for the values and morals of our youth, pushed us to bring you this podcast. We wanted to reach out to our generation, just as important as the younger generation, since we have so much to offer our children and grandchildren, and many of us are raising them. So we created this podcast to help empower all of you, our seniors in this country, to stand up and speak up for your freedom, for your love of country and your family and faith.
Yeah, folks, we're tired of media lies, along with so many of you. Wherein lies the truth? Russia collusion was the topic of conversation from the far left during President Trump's first term, along with other conspiracy theories. So what we need to do is to stay informed and educated. Know your representatives. And how many times that I've watched Johnny on the Jesse Waters show come out to colleges and universities, and these kids don't even know who the president is. It's Donald J. Trump, ladies and gentlemen. Get used, get used to it. We got used to Joe Biden. Now he's got another 3 years. We can be the vehicle for change. This is one of the purposes of this podcast. We can empower our children and our grandchildren. So how can we do this? Follow quality news. Invest the time to see who's telling the truth or who's exaggerating. And you'll be able to do that. Defend your conservative traditional principles, the principles upon which our country was founded. Mentor young people like your own grandchildren. Share your knowledge and experience to help them understand their role in protecting our country and the Constitution. Advocate for balanced power. Support efforts to prevent overreach by any single branch of government, including the executive branch. Nobody's above the law. Promote ethics, support ethics, reforms for lawmakers to ensure that they follow the same rules as everyone else does, not more for me and none for thee. We have an obligation to speak up for this country, for giving us the opportunity to pursue our dreams.
And Beverly, now more than ever, our freedom requires responsibility to tell and promote the truth. Truth requires courage. What's the opposite of truth? It's evil, and that's silence. So be challenged along with us and take a stand. One of the things I wanted to talk about here, Beverly and I were concerned. A lot of people and friends told us, well, if you do this podcast, people are going to criticize you. You're going to get hate mail. You're going to get this. You're going to get that. And, there is a concern because there are a lot of crazies in this country. But something that really swayed me, I was seeing my doctor, and you know how the nurse gets you ready to see the doctor by prepping you, taking your blood pressure and all that. Very lovely woman. And we were just talking about how crazy things are out there. And she said, well, let me tell you about my grandson. My 5-year-old grandson started school last September. And from a faith-based family, apparently, he was wearing a yellow band bracelet that said, I love Jesus. Well, the 5-year-old was bullied mercilessly for about 3 days, came home in tears. It was just unbelievable. So these toddlers, 4 and 5-year-olds, were bullying him, apparently learning things or something from their parents. So I said to myself, no, that's wrong. That's not right. So we know right from wrong. And that just sort of set me over the edge to actually do this podcast. And I'm very glad that I did. So Beverly, let's talk about something all of us seniors have. We have memories, right?
Right.
So, Beverly,
Some memories I'd like to forget. But I do remember growing up in my America, what happened to the American dream, God, the nuclear family, tradition, conservative values, and morals. We have an obligation to this country to respect all of these and our flag. It remains the number one issue because our youth will be running our country in the generations to come. So we as senior citizens must do everything possible to empower them to be critical thinking young men and women who love their country and want to share in the heritage created by our forefathers and the Constitution of the United States.
and Beverly, I'm sure you remember, along with me, going to school, learning about history, geography, and math, and guess what? How to read and write. They're failing our students these days with that. We honored our grandparents and were taught to respect adults. We were encouraged to build our lives through education and merit to achieve the American dream, real patriotism and love of country. And we remember saying the Pledge of Allegiance and honoring our flag.
And Irene, when the United States really started to receive immigrants into this country way back at the end of the 19th century into the 20th century, they came here to contribute to it and not to take from it. My grandparents came through Ellis Island, and they had to pass physical and mental health examinations before they could come to this country, or they were turned back. In 1917, they passed a policy allowing immigrants to be given literacy testing because of the amount of people that were trying to come to this country. That's how popular we were, and we still are.
Sure. We remember political discussions among family, around the dinner table, with neighbors, friends at social events. That was commonplace. We honored those who fought in wars and came back heroes. We celebrated national holidays, honoring the birth of our nation, our presidents, and our flag, as well as religious holidays. We went to church and synagogues regularly with parents. We learned about God. We had, and we learned about right and wrong. We had regular family dinners. We were taught to respect our parents and each other, and most of all, our country. We also were able to agree to disagree, to speak to each other, and we were able to worship our faith unafraid. So, Beverly, let's talk about what we don't remember.
Hmm.
Uh,
Where shall I begin?
it's a
uh,
tough one. Yeah.
yeah, I'll start with let's talk about political hatred from the opposing party. The far left has gone insane. I just wish that the opposing political parties could encourage each other rather than denigrating each other. Wouldn't it be great if we could work together to make America great again? And please, don't say America was never great because all of us have the opportunity to be whatever we want to do. All we have to do is work for it and stop looking for handouts. I recognize too that some of us don't have opportunities to get out and get what we want because of financial, health, or family circumstances. But there is help for those people. All we need to do is to be proactive instead of reactive. And also, increased anti Semitic activity, especially in our youth. There's paid groups at colleges and universities denigrating Jewish students. Who's behind these paid protesters, Irene? I wonder who.
Beverly, I think it's important to mention one thing here. Many, if not most of these protesters don't really know what they're protesting about. They don't know history or the actual cultures of the countries they're in support of. For example, I can't believe gays and trans protest in support of Hamas or Palestine. So they probably don't realize that in those cultures, their identities are considered criminal and they would be killed, either thrown off of a rooftop or hung from a crane. So how can they protest in favor of them? It makes no sense whatsoever. And any groups that are funding them, and make no mistake, they are being paid, should let these people know that there is an increased element of danger, especially when they're protesting law enforcement, as recently demonstrated by the tragic killing of the young woman in Minneapolis. People, if they're attacking law enforcement in any way, they should be told and warned that there could be consequences. So we don't remember increased violence on our streets and escalating crime, nor do we remember violent protests.
Well, I'd like to add something here. I don't remember more than two genders, only two that I know of, man and woman, is created by our Almighty God. Also, hatred for this country from groups who want to destroy it. You come here and you want to destroy this country. It doesn't make sense. And there's a governor out in California refusing to arrest illegal truck drivers because just to spite Donald Trump. How is this legal? How does the governor justify something like this? And this is a guy who wants to run for president. How is it that the liberals in this country think it's okay to keep resisting our president and demonizing his constituents, which I'm one of? Wokeism, DEI, everyone is created equal. There shouldn't be partisanship for anyone. Losing friends because of political differences, open borders, violence, rape, murder from illegal immigrants, American youth aligning with alien terrorist groups, transgender surgery for our youth, boys who think they are female playing in women's sports, and being afraid to speak up and voice your opinion for fear of violent retaliation.
That's so true, Beverly. And let's not forget a few other things we don't remember. Again, I agree with you. I seriously think there are more things we don't remember than remember. Defunding the police, that's a term of the last 10, 15 years. The hate rhetoric from political parties, media, and friends. The prevalence and increase of human trafficking, both women and children. Children being taught about sex, being gay or transsexuals at a very young age, even toddlers. Congressmen and senators using profanity in public and on TV. Government officials obstructing law enforcement. Boys, men playing in women's sports, which you already mentioned, Beverly. Anyone being able to just walk over the border without applying for legal immigration. Being afraid to voice your opinion on politics to anyone and being canceled.
Well, folks, there were a lot of things that we said today, and we want to thank all of you again for joining us. Seniors, we have a big voice. Let us use it to do good. We must be the catalyst for change because our complacency will lead to the erosion of our freedom for all of us and our children. In the future, we'll be talking about different topics, like the Great Divide, fear, which is going to be next week's topic, immigration, a very hot topic, patriotism, faith, communication, how do we talk to each other, education, information media, family, violence, history, politics, and politicians. We also have some interviews and try to answer your questions. Please send us your comments and subscribe and share our channel.
Thank you, Beverly, for being a part of this podcast, our first episode. In addition, we'll be giving you some common sense tips on things you can do to stand up, be heard, and speak the truth, and not be afraid. So please stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts with new episodes every other week on Sundays. So let us know what you want to hear about. Let your voice be heard. Do not be silent. Do not be afraid. And remember, you cannot silence truth. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.